Hey everybody, good day. Welcome to Meaningful Monday messages today. And today I am going to share an excerpt from one of my most favorite books that I read in my 20s that affirmed my heart and my soul so deeply that still to this day when I listen to the audiobook and I reread the book, it's nourishment for my soul. And that book is called Siddharta by Hermann Hesse. So from the time I was, as far back as I can remember, I've always felt this deep resonance of truth and wisdom and presence in nature of God, spirit, however way you wish to name this force of all that is. And so growing up, I was always kind of the underdog, I had my own way of being. I didn't like to gossip about my friends. I always protected the other underdogs, and I always had a spiritual perspective. So I've always had the tendency to want to balance. If somebody went to the far negative, I would go to the far positive to try to find a balance point. So I've always had that inclination. I've always had the inclination to want to help people feel better since I was a little girl too. So these are things that were always natural to me, but my environment didn't really support it. I was also very reflective, very philosophical. So when I was 19, and I moved when I was 18, I moved to Germany, and the whole world opened up to me. It was like my candy store for the soul. Goethe, Hermann Hesse, deep philosophers, spirituality was still very alive, still is, natural healing. So it's like I landed in my soul home when I was there. And this book is one of the first books I found when I was 19, just about to turn 20. And I was thinking today, what am I going to read? And then I just ordered a new copy. So this is a brand new copy. I just ordered again from Amazon. I tend to give out my books and then buy new ones. And I just had this feeling I'd like to open up here. So I just opened it to a page, and it's a perfect page to just read a little excerpt from. And so Siddharta was somebody who came from a wealthy family, and then he left that to go try to be ascetic, I think they're called, ascetic in the jungle, where they don't eat, they just eat whatever the ground drops upon the floor, and they have their big beards and they're really skinny. And I met a few of them when I was traveling over there, and very profound beings and people, and the choice that they've made to just only dedicate to their inner journey, which is amazing. So in the story of Siddharta, that's how he starts out. And then he explores the path of material world as well eventually. And then he explores, the path of integrating both. And that's what I really love about this, because for me, in my mind, we're not here to escape the earthly experience. We're here to embody it with soul. We're here to learn how to transform the crude elements of our unconsciousness, of our lower nature, to match the higher nature so that we can experience heaven on earth. That's my take on things. And so when I read this book, I had that reaffirmed to me. So I'm going to read this, and I'm going to share a little bit about another teacher that I spent some time with, and it relates to this topic. Okay, so this is when Siddharta, he came out from the forest and his extreme focus on just, on denouncing life, right? So he's just came out of the forest, and he's deciding to explore life differently, to see if you can find different meaning there. So the second part, this is what it's called in the book. Siddharta learned something new on every step of his path, for the world was transformed and his heart was enchanted. He saw the sun rising over the mountains with their forests and setting over the distant beach with its palm trees. And actually, I'm just going to turn this around so you can take a look at this view while I'm reading. There we go. I think I got to hold it. Okay. At night, he saw the stars in the sky in their fixed positions, and the crescent moon floating like a boat in the blue. He saw trees, stars, animals, clouds, rainbows, rocks, herbs, flowers, streams and rivers, the glistening dew in the bushes in the morning, distant high mountains which were blue and pale, birds sang and bees, wind silverishly blew through the rice field. All of this 1,000-fold and colorful, had always been there. Always the sun and the moon had shone. Always rivers had roared and bees had buzzed. But in former times, all of this had been nothing more to Siddharta than a fleeting, deceptive veil before his eyes, which he looked upon in distrust, destined to be penetrated and destroyed by thought, since it was not the essential existence, since this essence lay beyond and on the other side of the visible. But now, his liberated eyes stayed on this side. He saw and became aware of the visible, sought to be at home in this world, did not search for true essence, did not aim at a world beyond. Beautiful was this world, looking at it thus, without searching, thus simply, thus childlike. Beautiful were the moon and the stars. Beautiful was the stream and the banks, the forest and the rocks, the goat and the gold beetle, the flower and the butterfly. Beautiful and lovely it was, thus to walk through the world, thus childlike, thus awoken, thus open to what is near, thus without distrust. How differently the sun burnt the head, differently the shade of the forest cooled him down, differently the stream and the cistern, the pumpkin and the banana tasted. Short were the days, short the nights. Every hour sped swiftly away like a sail on the sea, and under the sail was a ship full of treasures, full of joy. Siddharta saw a group of apes moving through the high canopy of the forest, high in the branches, and heard their savage, greedy song. Siddharta saw a male sheep following a female one and mating with her. In a lake of reeds, he saw the pike hungrily hunting for its dinner, propelling themselves away from it in fear, wiggling and sparkling. The young fish jumped in droves over the water. The scent of strength and passion came forcefully out of the hasty eddies of the water, which the pike stirred up, impetuously hunting. All of this had always existed, and he had not seen it. He had not been with it. Now he was with it. He was part of it. Light and shadow ran through his eyes. Stars and moon ran through his heart. I invite you to take a deep breath. And take a moment to just be really wholly present where you are. In this moment in time, wherever it is. Maybe you're in the car. Maybe you're at your computer. Maybe you're outside. Maybe you're playing with your kitty. But just take a moment to breathe. Breathe in and let everything else go that is not this moment in time. Keep breathing. And see if you can see more than you could see before. Paying attention to subtleties, subtleties in your own body, subtleties in the environment, subtleties even in your own perceptions. What is being described in this chapter is really the state of being fully alive. Living in this visible world and appreciating it and rejoicing in it and enjoying it and letting that beauty nourish our soul. And for me, nature has been the nourishment for my soul since I was a wee one. I can't even remember. I remember going to the forest when I was little, into the water, the lake, at a very early age. I mean, we were the generation where we could just go run around and show up at dinner time, and that was okay. So I would go to the forest and the beautiful beach. I have my rocks there that I still go to whenever I go back to Ontario, the rocks where I sat to contemplate and question life And my dad often goes there and takes pictures of it for me so that he can show me where the rocks are now in the water, how they've shifted and moved. So for me, this path of beauty, of connecting to nature, is what kept me sane in times when I was really just holding on, because I was trying to find my place in a world that I didn't really feel I fit. And then nature always nourished me, always gave me the insight that I needed. And gradually, I grew to embrace everything in the world. I used to be like a total non-techie. I was like, I'm never going to go on the internet. Well, here I am. So that's the path of growth and evolution. We need to be able to stretch beyond our comfort zones to grow. But my question to you is, what gets in the way of you experiencing the beauty of life? Every moment, even in struggle, of being able to access that beauty and that love that still coexists simultaneously, even when you're challenged, even when it feels like the world is falling apart inside you or the whole world at large. Still, there's a resounding frequency of beauty and goodness that still exists. And what I found happens is when I would get caught in the stresses of life, of just trying to keep going and keep doing, I fell out of alignment with being. And when I'd fall out of aligning with being, I would miss the beauty. And one of my elders, Imaho, who I spent, I think, about 6 or 7 years learning with, an amazing master who's passed on now. He lived with Tibetan monks for 8 years, and he's First Nations from New Mexico. And then he integrated the teachings from the Tibetan wisdom and First Nations and just world teaching. So he became like a world teacher, not caught in any kind of a label. He was just a teacher of life. A beautiful man. And one of the things that stuck out to me, I met him first when I was 24. And this statement really, and it still always echoes in me, and I to keep myself present, I remember this. He says, neuroses has no respect for time. Let that in. Neuroses has no respect for time. What does that mean? What is neuroses? Neuroses are the incessant thoughts and projections of past and future, everything that takes us away from this moment now. Everything that convinces us that we even will have a next moment beyond now. Now is the only moment we are alive and breathing. And if we're lucky, we get a next now. So the practice is to be present. And the breath is the quickest way to come into presence and alignment. But what can happen, and what makes a lot of people uncomfortable when starting to meditate and do yoga, as it was for me, I started learning yoga when I was 20. It was hard for me because being still meant I had to meet whatever in me was not still. So that was the beginning of my learning about trauma. When I was learning yoga in Thailand, I lived on a little island there, Fisher Place. Now it's like this mega island with highways and everything. But when I lived there, it was like a Gilligan's Island. It was like there was no roads. There was just a little wooden shack where you could buy some yogurt and some drinks and, a few little, guest sort of like little, I guess, what were they called? Guest houses or whatever, little cabins to rent on the water. I got a cabin for $1.25 a night right on the water. On the other end of the island, there was Hadrin Beach, and that was already a little bit more developed. But where I was on the island, it was just a Fischerdorf. Dorf is German. I got German in me. A fisher village. And so that's where I started learning yoga. And I remember the first yoga position I did, it was like to stretch open the neck. And I felt this rush of energy. I got nauseous. I felt sick, and my whole world just started like, whoa, because consciousness is in the body. And then I remember just crying, and I didn't know why. And my teacher said, well, yeah, something is held in your neck, and this is the process getting into the body will clear out whatever trauma is in the body. And so that was my beginning of learning how to be present. Because until we're present in our body now, we can't really live life fully. We can't really embody what we're here to embody. And it doesn't have to be this grand gesture of a purpose. It's just simply being who we are. That gift of goodness and love that's already planted in our mind and our body and our soul, to let that take root and grow. But what neuroses does is it sort of interrupts that capacity. And then we start feeding thoughts that aren't true. We start feeding distortions like I'm not enough, I'm not lovable, or all the different beliefs we have that keep us entrapped within ourselves instead of truly living. So that's what neuroses is. So I'm going to invite you to take some deep breaths with me here. And just land in this moment of now. And touch your hand to your heart. And think of one thing in this moment that is within you or in your environment or your world that you can really feel a wholehearted sense of gratitude, the gratitude that warms your heart and then readjusts your body chemistry. Because the moment we think something, our body chemistry immediately responds. Think something sad or fearful, our chemistry responds. Think it's something that we're grateful for, appreciative of, and love, boom, our chemistry changes. So this is the work. The more that we breathe in the moment, we align with what is, we align with the moment. Even in the middle of a storm, we learn to become the eye of the storm. So that the storms of our inner life and subconscious mind and the storms of life don't have the power to uproot us and spin us into a neurotic frenzy of confusion, lostness, noise. Deep breath. And my invitation to you this week is to take moments where you can appreciate a flower, where you can give observation, even to the nuances of beauty of you. You exist. You are able to have thoughts. That is a miracle. We are filled with all kinds of daily miracles that because we're caught in our neuroses, we forget to see or we don't see. And so this is my invitation, Siddharta, he denounced everything worldly to go into the forest, to give up everything because life was an illusion, but it left him empty. So he left that, and then he woke up to the beauty of this world, and that started a new path for him. So take a deep breath. I forgot my flute, so I'm going to turn the camera around, and I will do a little vocables like I do, and see what comes out, just as a little meditative experience for you to rest in that contemplation and let yourself come home to the moment, because it's exhausting. It's exhausting living ahead of ourselves or behind ourselves. It's exhausting. Aren't you tired? Come home. Come home to the essence of you that always is the I am. The I am presence. Not the I will be, not the I was, the I am. And let life nourish you. Bless you. Here we go. deep breath. Let it go. Let everything go. Everything go that keeps you from being here and now. And being here and now does not mean we don't plan for the future, but it means we make the movements towards our future from here now. Everything I do in this moment is building my future automatically. So follow your excitement, follow your joy. Follow what moves your heart and soul in each moment. And it's inevitable. You will always be where you need to be. Bless you. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. Me and Pono, signing out. God bless.